In 2024, CrowdStrike saw a whopping 442% increase in phishing attempts. That is insane. This is just one of the many staggering stats that came out of CrowdStrike's 2025 Global Threat Report. So we're gonna take a look at some key facts inside this report. I'm gonna give some highlights, just a few highlights of what I found out of the report, and then we're gonna take a look at what action steps you can take after this report. One of the things that the report calls out is the growth in adversary groups. Adversary groups are those threat actors and threat agents that are out there that are carrying out cyber crime and cyber warfare and carrying out these different cyber attacks. Well, what CrowdStrike is doing is they're tracking 257 different adversary groups. That's an increase of 26 in 2024. So it's a significant growth in how many adversary groups are out there. Not only is the number of adversary groups growing, but also the complexity in which they're doing business. That is, they are becoming more like businesses, enterprise level businesses, that these teams are growing and there's more and more complexity in how they organize. And so a common theme throughout this report is this enterprising adversaries, that they are coming together in a much more organized way, and how they carry out their attacks is much more organized. As a result, we see that these adversary groups are carrying out more and more attacks. The report found that the China-related attacks, what they call the China Nexus, those attacks that are related to groups that are coming from or about China, associated with China. And we see an increase of 150%. In fact, in some industries, in some sectors, we see an increase of up to 400%. We do see a decrease in how much malware is being used to carry out these attacks. This right here is showing us how much malware-free techniques are being used out there, and it's increasing, meaning the amount of malware that we're using is decreasing. Malware just is not as effective as it used to be, and we can more easily identify things like network scanners and other tools that hackers use to be able to hack a network. And so instead, adversaries are now gravitating towards interactive intrusions. Interactive intrusions is when adversaries are on keyboards, live, actually trying to hack into your network, into your infrastructure, into your services, trying to get into them, but they're doing it in a way that's more covert. What they're trying to do is they're trying to act more like a regular user, using regular tools that a regular user would use, so that way our systems don't identify them. I hope you like this summary of the Global Threat Report so far. If you do, could you really help me out and hit that like button on this video? That really helps me out. Also, if you want to see other great videos on cybersecurity, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Since adversaries need to take on the role of a regular user to go undetected by our networks and our systems, what they'll do is they'll start out with an initial access. The concept of initial access just means that an adversary's first steps into leveraging your systems is to gain access into those systems. That's the initial step. CrowdStrike has this great workflow of how an adversary would attack your network, starting out with an initial access. And how would they gain initial access? Well, what CrowdStrike found in 2024, that 52% of vulnerabilities that are out there were related to initial access. Another thing that was found is that the amount of access broker advertisements has increased by 50%. Access brokers are those entities out there that will buy credentials, stolen credentials from certain people out there, and then resell them to other people. Really, it facilitates these adversaries because now they don't have to go and find credentials out there. They can just buy them from someone else. CrowdStrike scours the dark web to see how many of these advertisements are out there for these access brokers. And as you can see, there's been an increase over the time, at 50% increase over time in the number of advertisements for these access brokers. Adversaries will either purchase these credentials from an access broker so they can gain access into networks and into places that they're not supposed to be, or they'll use some sort of social engineering technique in order to gain access into these systems. So it's not a surprise that a big part of this report really does focus on social engineering and certain tactics that adversaries are using nowadays towards social engineering. And no doubt that's one of the reasons why we saw such an increase in phishing techniques. That is when an adversary is calling somebody on the phone and getting them on the phone and trying to trick that person or social engineering them over the phone. And we call that phishing. We saw a 442% increase in phishing over the course of 2024. And one of the things that's contributing to the success of social engineering techniques is generative AI and large language models. Adversaries are using AI to generate more realistic phishing emails. One research paper says that a human-generated phishing campaign or phishing email can get 12% click-through rate, whereas an AI-generated phishing email can actually reach 54%. That is a staggering difference. Adversaries are also using AI to generate harvesting websites that are out there to trick innocent people into submitting information, and they can gather that information, gathering credentials and other information on those users. It also can be used for deepfake, creating things like audio and video. In fact, one adversary group took some public videos of a chief financial officer, a CFO, and used it to create a deepfake that led to a $25.6 million loss. In another deepfake incident, they mimicked the CEO's, the chief executive officer of a company's voice to be able to trick somebody into transferring money into the scammer's account. But adversaries are also using AI in order to generate code and scripts for malicious behavior. Another thing that's concerning that's coming from the report is that the average breakout time is dropping. The new average breakout time is 48 minutes, with the least breakout time in the incidents that they saw being 51 seconds. An attacker is going to try to gain access to the system. And then once they're into the system, they're going to use that to leverage to carry out some sort of attack on the system. They're going to take the next steps. Well, the difference in time between them gaining access to the system and them carrying out their attack, that's called the breakout time. And the least amount of breakout time that CrowdStrike saw was 51 seconds from the point in time they gained access into the network to they took advantage of that network. Before I get too much further, I want to hear from you. What did you see in 2024? What were the biggest threats that you saw? What out of this report resonates with you? What did you learn new about this report? Put that down in the comment section below. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about this report was reading about the different adversary groups. These different adversary groups have different names that are interesting and the different ways that they carry out their tactics and techniques. The different adversary names end in a name that ties them to a region, that associates them with a region. For instance, Panda is associated with China. And then the first part of this is created to identify the specific group. So each one of these are a specific adversary group. The report even has a legend, so that way you can cross-reference these different names with the regions they come from. For instance, a large part of the report focuses on the Panda or China. It also calls out some specific things around North Korea and the threat around North Korea. It also gave some specific examples around exploit chaining, taking different vulnerabilities that are out there and different exploits that are out there and chaining them together to really leverage and get into a system and hack a system. It also goes into some specifics on how these adversary groups carry out some of their attacks. For instance, the Curly Spider, one of the attacks that they carry out is they do a spam bomb of a user. They send them a bunch of spam, and then they'll call them up and act as if they're the IT department and say, we're going to try to help you fix this spam issue. We noticed that you got a lot of spam all at once. They look into their inbox, and sure enough, it confirms and adds a certain amount of validity to whoever's calling. And so now they're going to trust this person even though it's a scammer. And then the scammer carries out this phishing call and then utilizes that information to be able to hack the network. And it compares and contrasts the different groups. For instance, the Chatty Spider, instead of bombing them with a bunch of spam, will just send a phishing email saying, give us a call, we need to help you out, and then they'll call in. or the plump spider who just actively makes a phishing call and acts as if it's IT support. Some of these recommendations are specific to the trends that we see within cybersecurity, while others are just good postures to have to make sure that you're keeping your organization safe. Ultimately, these adversaries are being ran like enterprise-level businesses, like these big businesses, and they're organized. And so how are we going to combat that? Well, the way we combat that is with great security operations. And I have a course that's available that covers what security operations look like and how to set it up correctly. It covers things like what a security program is and what it looks like, what security operations are, what compliance management is, what risk management. There are 18 different modules. You can choose to go in and view everything if you want to view everything. You can view it by module, these different topics, or you can go in and view individual videos, whatever is best for you. Don't forget to put the trends that you found in 2024 down in the comment section below. And what did you get out of this video? Put it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, help me out by liking it, and then subscribe to my channel.